Welcome to this afternoon's panel. I'm Pam Salisbury. I'm an emeritus professor within the College of Public Health here at OSU. And along with my collaborator, Dana Howard, we'd like to welcome you to this, this panel today. We're excited about having this conversation about mentorship. Dana and I've talked about having one of the panels and part of the CARES training program to focus on mentorship. So we're very happy that we're able to do this at this point in time. We know there's high interest and increasing interest, I think, across the academy about development of workforce, and this is from staff, students, early career faculty, mid-career faculty, and even senior faculty. So I think the topic will be and is of high interest. We have three really stellar speakers that's going to bring different expertise and different information to this discussion, which I really think will be lively and engaging and maybe just the start of some conversations. First, I'd like to introduce you to Katie Stinson. And from her bio, I pulled out her comment that she has had an unconventional career leading to her work with the National Research Mentoring Network. She carries the experience, knowledge, and insight in starting over. So I like that as a sort of note of introduction. She has a bachelor's in journalism with an emphasis in advertising and a minor in marketing and English from University of North Texas. She has spent 8.5 years in advertising. After that, she got a master's in library and information science, again, with an emphasis in health informatics from the University of North Texas. And she completed her master's in 2016. She's transitioned to working in the STEM field, and she now works for the National Research Mentoring Network, which she is going to speak to us today about, and began there in 2018 and is currently the virtual engagement strategist. She works to help manage recruitment, engagement, and user support, and she's also in her spare time pursuing a PhD in sociology. So what's on her plate? Dr. Norris Turner is a professor in the Department of Internal Medicine here at Ohio State. She's an infectious disease epidemiologist, and for 20 years or so, she really has worked in the field of HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. No surprise to anybody who knows an infectious disease epidemiologist. Her field has changed a bit, and since spring of 2020, she has been working in understanding the epidemiology of COVID-19, especially here in Ohio. And then our third panelist is Dr. Hernandez. She's the administrative director of the Ohio State Postdoc office. She has a BS in molecular genetics and an MS and PhD in biochemistry. Her current role is to design and implement programs to enhance and support postdoc scholars, including a special focus on those from underrepresented backgrounds. I like this line that I pulled out for her from her bio. She became a scientist thanks to an awesome PhD mentor whose enthusiasm and love for science made her want to be a researcher. So the power of mentors right there. Just a reminder, the format is we will begin with Ms. Stinson, who will provide opening comments for 15 or 20 minutes around the National Research Mentoring Network, followed by comments by Dr. Norris Turner and Dr. Hernandez. We'll have some questions that I will pose, and then we will have questions and answers from the audience. And please use the Q&A function on Zoom to submit your questions. You can submit those at any time. So with that, I want to turn over the screen to Katie to begin our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I am so excited to be here. Just listening to what you all do with this, this panel series and everything that goes on with this and all the education shared. I'm just really excited to be here and representing the National Research Mentoring Network. So as Pamela said, my name is Katie Stinson, and I am actually the virtual engagement strategist for the National Research Mentoring Network. And what that is an NIH grant-funded initiative whose entire purpose is to diversify the STEM research workforce. We have been in existence since about 2014, and since then we have so far amassed over 20,000 mentors and mentees within our network. Now, the way that NRMN is structured, it actually changed. We were funded for our first phase, as we call it, from 2014 through 2019. And then in 2019, we started what we refer to as phase 2. And there was a bit of a restructuring here, but really what it comes down to is that we're all a part of the Diversity Program Consortium, or DPC here, which is all funded through the NIGMS. Now, the DPC is actually made up of the NRMN Coordination Center, the BUILD programs, which are actually housed within 10 different undergraduate universities, or I guess universities with undergraduate programs throughout the United States. There are individual UO1 research projects that actually work directly with the NRMN Coordination Center. The DPC also has a Coordination and Evaluation Center. And then finally, I work for the National Research Mentoring Network Resource Center, and we handle all of the resources that are available to everyone in the United States. So all of our outward facing resources is really what we cover. And so what that consists of are what we'd like to break down into 2 separate categories. So we have resources available on our website, which is nrmnnet.net. And that's all the stuff you see right here. And so within this, we have, the NRMN website where we house updates and all of things before our community blog. We also have a newsletter that we send out on a monthly basis, in addition to extra promotional things that we send out, such as announcements about webinars whenever people have upcoming recruitment initiatives that they need to do, such as to recruit for grant writing workshops and things like that. We also have a vast social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then we also have a page dedicated just to diversity funding opportunities. So if any of you has an organization or works with an organization that has diversity funding opportunities and you want to spread the word about that, let us know. And we would actually be happy to post them on this link on our site. Additionally, we would also be happy to partner and post any of that stuff within our newsletter, and that way we can cross promote one another. But additionally, so that was all the stuff that's available just on our website, and that's available to anybody, whether they are a member of NRMN or not. However, if you are a member of NRMN, you actually gain gain access to the resources that are available through My NRMN. And so for that, we have our guided virtual mentoring program, My Mentor, our network of over 20,000 in the STEM community. We have customizable goals that you can work through within My Mentor. We also have a CV resume builder, virtual groups that can be special interest groups or group mentoring. We also have the NRMN Unconscious Bias course, which I'll go into a little bit more later. And just this past spring, we launched the Jobs and Internships Board, excuse me. So within that, this is another space where if you have things that you want to promote or positions that you want available and you want to get it out to a targeted group of 20,000 STEM individuals, this is a great place for you to come in and promote anything in there. And if you have any questions about how to utilize this network or how to do any of that, definitely reach out to us. I'm going to post our email address at the end, and we would be happy to help you with any of that. So moving on, first is just our website. That's nrmnnet.net. We actually have a video playing in the background, and this was just a screen grab from a few seconds within the video. But if you would like to join NRMN, you can simply go up here and click join. Otherwise, you can log in directly to My NRMN from here as well too. But this is where you can go and to actually navigate and check out all of those resources that I mentioned that are available to anybody with an internet connection. However, if you are a member of NRMN, and by the way, membership is completely free. Like I said, we're all funded by the NIH, so anybody is welcome to join. The only requirements are that mentees be at least 18 years and older, and also be a US citizen, permanent resident, or non-citizen US national. This is an NIH stipulation, but then mentors just need to meet that 18 and up requirement. But if you are a member of NRMN, you gain access into My NRMN. And this is our mentoring, networking, and professional development platform, where we have lots of different tools in here. And I'm not going to be able to cover all of them today, but the basics come down to mentoring, networking, and career development. And I will go over a few of those resources here and now. So first and foremost is our mentoring. And we have a few different aspects of mentoring within My NRMN. So one of them is this guided virtual mentoring program called My Mentor. And for that program, which I'll go into and break it down a little bit further in the next few slides, but it really pertains to a culturally aware sense of mentoring. And this is really the entire foundation of the mentoring within NRMN. And so we built all of this off of Dr. Chris Fund's research about attributes for effective mentoring that come into research development, interpersonal skills, psychosocial development, awareness of diversity and cultural aspects, and then also sponsorship to help people get from that one career education stage to the next. And really, I'm going to read this quote that's in here, or read this box that's in here. So, cultural diversity and mentoring. If cultural diversity and mentoring is ignored, mentoring relationships can lead to miscommunication, privileging dominant cultural norms, mismatched expectations due to differing cultural values, and conflicts in working styles. So this is why it is so important whenever you are finding a mentoring partner and whenever you're reaching out to your network of mentors, that you actually look not just at what their skill set is, not just at, you know, what their credentials are, but also who they are as a person, to see if they really are going to be a good fit for you and the background that you have and what you're bringing to the table. So the biggest mentoring aspect that we have is called My Mentor. And this is our guided virtual mentoring. And it's a one-on-one long-term mentoring relationship in which we provide you discussion prompts along the way to help guide and facilitate that mentoring connection. So we have different prompts available that include dealing with stress, aligning expectations, microaggressions. There's all kinds of content in here. And we have 19 prompts across 5 different career paths. And I'll show you those in just a minute. But all of these pertain to things that are culturally aware mentoring. So really, whenever we're thinking about this aspect of mentoring within our network, we are actually helping you develop who you are as a person, help develop your confidence and independence, really to help you get from that one career education stage to the next. So how we do this, again, is through this guided virtual mentoring. We have 5 different paths of undergraduate, post-baccalaureate, graduate, postdoctoral, and junior faculty. However, something that's great about this is we give you the space to have all these conversations, to have these discussions, to give you the ideas of what is great to talk about, to really develop that trust between mentoring partners. But we also make it completely customizable for you. So let's say if there's anyone on the call today that is not in STEM and you're seeing everything that's relating to STEM, that's okay. You can still utilize these. We make everything completely customizable so that you can go in and take out STEM and put in basket weaving if you want. I'm sorry, I can't think of another one right now. But you know, you can put in journalism, you can put in art, you can put in any of the topics that you really want to cover and really dive into those features and aspects and attributes of these mentoring connections to really make it what you need it to be for you. These mentoring connections also are less focused on the day-to-day and more focused on building that personal self-efficacy. So it is something too that even if someone that you match with isn't exactly aligned with your specific career, you can still learn and gain from each other because you're really building up yourselves as people rather than building on the experiment that you're working on or the project that you have coming up. So next, I want to dive into our unconscious bias course. This is something that was actually in development for almost a year and was finally ready to launch last July, in July 2020. And it has really taken off since then. So something that this really works with is that we can have anybody come in and enroll in this course. And from there, they have access to these 5 modules that really give you an insight into your own personal unconscious bias, talks about microaggressions and how to deal with those. It provides a solutions toolkit for how to be an advocate. It also helps you develop your own self-awareness. And for those that are either curious or currently working in healthcare and medicine, it also dives into the bias and health disparities in those fields. There is a certificate awarded upon completion. And just as of this morning, I noted that there were over 1,400 course members. And so, like I said, this course has been active for a little over a year now, and we're seeing just a ton of people come in and take it. This course takes, if you can take it all in one sitting, it takes about an hour, but you're also welcome to break it up between those 5 modules, and each of those only take about 20 minutes a piece. But this has just been a wonderful course. We do also have some other courses in development. We are just on the cusp of launching 2 new courses all about launching research for mentees, and that'll actually be broken up into a 2-part series. So up next is the My Groups feature. And I mentioned this slightly just a little bit earlier, but really this is a space for anybody to come in and either search out other groups that already exist that pertain to their special interests or things that they want to learn, or group mentoring that they want to participate in, or they can develop their own groups. Mentees and mentors alike can develop their own groups, and they all can decide if they are going to be a public group where anybody can join, if they're going to be invite only, which is great for recruitment because people can search for it, but you have to request an invite to join. It can be a completely private group, meaning that, you know, nobody can know that it exists and you will only know it exists if you receive an invite. Or you can even make it an announcements group where, you know, it's kind of like a Facebook fan page where people can subscribe to it, but there's not interactions. So there's a lot of different ways to come in and actually meet with people in this group setting, and a lot of different ways to utilize this. I've seen a lot of groups come in and actually use this for their group to disseminate information. I've had other groups come in and make tiny little groups and little pods that do group mentoring within these groups. So there's all different ways to use this, and they all have video call features and group video call features too. So that way you can utilize everything within the platform and not necessarily have to share personal information if that's something that you're not comfortable doing. Additionally, I mentioned earlier that we just launched our jobs and internships board. This is something that has really taken off. Something that I haven't added here because it's brand new is that we just launched a bulk uploads feature. Now, we don't have this ready for the public yet, but it is something that our administrators, such as myself, can actually help and work with you to create. And so what we would be able to do if you work with another organization, or if say you have an organization on campus where you have a lot of job postings that you research and find and disseminate those out to your campus, you can also share those here, and we can help you with that bulk upload feature to get those all disseminated here as well. But additionally, this is something that it's not just for jobs and internships, despite what the title is. You can also post about requests for abstracts. You can also come in and search for anything really that is an opportunity within the STEM fields to come and search here. So this is something too that if you also post here, we feature several of these in the NRMN newsletter. So there is a chance that anything you get posted here will also be more broadly featured in our newsletter and on our socials. Additionally, this is my favorite feature, is the CV resume builder. And if I ever get the chance to show any of you in person what it's like within my NRMN, I'll get to show you exactly why it's my favorite. But as you heard from my bio, I do not come from a STEM background. I come from the business world where you create a one-page resume, and if it's longer than that, it's getting tossed in the trash. But within the STEM fields, this is completely different. You want as much information on your CV as possible. And so this really walks you through all the different categories and steps that you'll need to include in your STEM CV. You can also choose to display a profile picture, and really it helps you just get everything in there that you need. Then at the very bottom of the page, which wasn't able to be captured in the screenshot, you click publish once you're done, and then you get that lovely chartreuse bar up at the top with that hyperlink. And every single CV that's created gets its own unique URL. So you can actually share this URL with others. And I recommend, I've seen people do it where they convert it to a QR code, put it on their business cards, put it on their poster presentations, anywhere that they want someone to access their CV. And that way anybody can just go to that hyperlink and actually see your entire CV. And from there, they actually have the option to also download it as a PDF too. But what I really love about this, and for anyone that has had to update their CV more than once ever, you'll appreciate this, is that anytime you come in and update this, you just click publish one more time, and then it'll automatically update that link. So you're not saving version after version after version and constantly seeking out your most recently updated version. It is automatically updating it right in this link. You don't have to update your QR code. You don't have to update anything that you've previously shared. It's just going to update it right there in that space. So I think that's probably the reason why this is my favorite tool in the entire system. It's because it just makes it so much easier to do everything. All right, something else that we recently launched, I guess I need to stop saying recently on this one. I guess it was about 2 years ago we launched this one. The last year is completely, thrown off my sense of time. But we launched this about 2 years ago now, once NIH asked that everybody everybody sync their ORCID ID with their NIH application. And so what we wanted to do was to create a space where everyone could come in and be ready and prepared once they are submitting their application to the NIH or NSF. or any other funding agency that requires an ORCID ID. So what we did is gave you a space where you can actually create your ORCID ID here. And if anyone isn't familiar with the ORCID ID, this is a space where you can come in, create a profile. It's completely free, and it really will sync up all the publications that are attributed to your name. And that way you've got not only, you know, your credentials listed there, but also all your publications that will be synced across all the different outlets that actually host these publications. And then it can also go in and automatically update how many times they're cited and all of that thing. So it's really, it takes so much work off your plate whenever you are creating your CV and even applying for any sort of grants. But so you can sync your ORCID ID up here or create one. But if you don't want to do that, or if you just want to search elsewhere, you can also download publications directly from PubMed. Whoop, I went a little too far. But something great about this too is that within my NRMN, we use a dynamic matching algorithm. So we're actually able to come in and recommend mentors and mentees for you to connect with. And from that, it captures not only what you input into your profile, but also who you're connecting with in the network, but also any keywords within your publications. Whenever you search for these keywords, you'll be able to find other people that have publications matching those key terms, and people will be able to find yours based on the key terms here as well. And the same goes for our CV resume builder. Whether you upload your own CV, either a Word document or a PDF, or you create it within the CV resume builder, we will also be able to use our matching algorithm to pull key terms from that to help generate those recommendations for you. So finally, if you are interested in joining NRMN and accessing any of these resources, I've given you 3 different ways to do so. You can either go to NRMN and actually, sorry about that, go to NRMN and click join. You can scan this QR code, or you can also go to mynrmn.net and click join my NRMN. You're not obligated to join at all, but if you are interested in any of these resources or accessing any of the mentoring that we have, definitely feel free to join the network. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at info@nrmnnet.net. If you would like to see a preview of this, if you would like a demonstration, if you have questions, anything, please feel free to reach out to us. I check this email address all day, so I usually am pretty quick to get back to you. But note that I am in this meeting right now, so it will be after this. But definitely, if you have any questions, let us know. I'm always happy to answer and connect with people. But also, if you are on the socials and would like to follow us there and see the content, we're always trying to keep abreast of, you know, recent publications that come out with mentoring, anything that's pertaining to the needs of those that are in early faculty and STEM fields. So really, we try to stay active with it. We make announcements all the time, so definitely feel free to follow us here. But that's it for me today. Thank you all for your time of this. And so I'm going to go on mute now and unshare my screen and open it up to the rest of the panelists.
So I'm going to suggest that we move maybe to Dr. Hernandez, who can talk about maybe the interface a little bit about mentoring at OSU processes, and then we can move down to Dr. Norris Turner, who can talk about it on a sort of in the weeds individual level. So Dr. Hernandez.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I want to say that I'm a big fan of NRMN. I actually am a mentor in the mentoring platform, and I've had really great mentoring relationships with undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, and many of those actually went well beyond the the time that NRMN gives you to establish this relationship, which is great. We don't communicate as often as when we were in the platform, but we definitely communicate and see each other sometimes at conferences and things like that. So I really recommend that platform. In fact, we at the postdoc office, we promote it among postdocs. We think this is a great way for them to mentor, in addition to the undergraduates that they're mentoring or the graduate students that they're mentoring in their research groups. And now at Ohio State, we formed a group actually of faculty and staff that we call ourselves the Ohio State Mentoring Initiative. And what we want to do is to expose as many faculty members and postdoctoral researchers to the mentoring curriculum that Christine Fund at the University of Wisconsin put together through this center that she directs. Is called the Center for the Improvement of Mentoring Experiences in Research, or CIMAR. And they actually have put together great curricula, not just for mentoring down, but also mentoring up, as well as for how to become a good mentee. That's mostly for undergraduates and like first year graduate students. And I think that that is really important, to think about the mentoring relationship as a two-way street, because I think a lot of trainees think that they are the passive receivers of mentorship and that they don't have any responsibility in that relationship, which is one of the things that I observe the most when I work with trainees from undergrads to postdoctoral scholars, is that they actually could help their mentor a lot by mentoring up. In other words, really kind of communicating with them about what their needs are, because I think they have this fantasy that faculty members have these magical powers that they can look at you and immediately know what your needs are. And that is not true. And everybody is different. Everybody has different needs. So it's really important that they articulate this. So we've been really trying to push this mentoring up curriculum among postdoctoral scholars. And sometimes we open it up to graduate students as well, because we think that is really important as it is to really help faculty members become better mentors. It's really important that the mentees understand that it's part of their mentoring relationship is not all on the shoulders of the faculty, that they also have a responsibility there. And so what we've done is that we have now, this year in 2021, we were able to do these workshops on campus virtually. Every month, we divided the curriculum into 3 pieces so that we wouldn't ask people to give us like a whole day. We know that that's really hard. So, and we worked with the Drake Institute to provide people who take the entire training an endorsement on research mentoring. And that actually has been quite successful. I have seen a lot of faculty who want to get that that endorsement. And I think it also is working out very well, because I know NIH and other funders for training grants, for example, they want all faculty members listed as mentors to have exposure to these trainings. So, so that is so another reason why I think we've been getting a very steady flow of people wanting to become part of this training, participate in these workshops. And I do think, you know, that a lot of the things that we talk about in these workshops are addressing the most common problems I see between mentors and mentees. Here in the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs, we often have postdocs that come to talk to us about issues that they're facing. And almost all the time, as soon as they start telling us what's going on, I can classify it in one of the topics of the workshop. Oh, this is about aligning expectations. Oh, this is about communicating effectively. And so that is why I am a big supporter of this effort, because I think it really will take us to another level if we can all have some discussions, because really these workshops are not prescribing people how to be a good mentor. That is like telling somebody how to be a good parent. You know, it depends on the kid, it depends on you, it depends on so many things. But at least to think about what are the things that you need to bring up, what kinds of conversations would be good to have. And also, I think faculty and participants in these workshops learn the most from each other when they hear each other's strategies and experiences. I think that is very helpful. And I do think that mentoring is a cornerstone of research and scholarship. Without that, it's really very difficult to succeed as a graduate student or as a postdoc. And in fact, there was a study recently that showed that one of the main factors in determining a postdoc to transition from postdoc to research intensive tenure track faculty member was excellent mentoring at the postdoctoral level. So without that, it's very hard to make that transition. So I'll leave it there.
So Abby, you want to talk about the in the trenches kind of activities?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Pam. I'm happy to do that. And I'll just warn everyone, I did just get the dreaded Zoom warning that my internet connection is unstable. So I will apologize in advance if I cut out, that's what's happening. It will come back. But yeah, so thanks for inviting me. And because I know the most exciting and interesting parts of these sessions are the Q&A, I'll just be brief and give just a little bit of background about my experience as a mentor. So I think the reason why Pam and Dana asked me to present here is because of the experience I've had over many years now at OSU as a mentor. I'm a professor in the College of Medicine, so I have a lot of medical and graduate students that I work with, both master's and doctoral, but also I direct a training corps that currently has about 40 trainees from undergrads through postdocs in various stages of training who all have various aspects of mentoring requirements. And I also fit in the bucket of people who had such a transformative mentor in my own life that I named my first child after her. So I think the people who have had wonderful mentors in life really can look back on those people for their entire careers and feel the benefit of their advice over that time. So I'm very lucky and grateful for that. Okay, so I just wrote down a number of the three actually buckets of things that I think about when I'm going into a mentoring relationship or thinking about how to be a good mentor. And I'm sure these are covered in the two training programs that we've heard about earlier in this session. And I'll just amplify them from my personal perspective. So the first one is really this idea about making time to listen to people. You know, graduate school is really hard and there are always going to be challenges that students face. It's financial insecurity, geographic dislocation, sometimes family challenges. The academic piece is really hard. There's a lot of lack of confidence and stress about the future, right? Graduate school is already hard. And if you're the mentor and you're not listening to students come to you and tell you those things, you can't be a good resource to them when things go off the rails. And that's the majority of students are going to encounter a very challenging period of graduate school. And it might be that their relationship is ending or they have an eating disorder or a substance abuse disorder. Things happen to graduate students. And if you've not been listening to what's going on, you can't actually be a good resource to help them navigate those very challenging experiences. So my first sort of lesson to myself in a new mentoring relationship is to shut up and listen, because the other person is the one that's doing more of the talking. My second sort of personal rule going into these mentoring relationships is to avoid any aspect of favoritism. Chemistry between people is a real thing. There are always going to be mentees that you have a bit of a more natural dynamic with. And to me, that's a sign that that's work that I need to do myself. Every mentor that walks through the door deserves the same kind of interaction and attention and benefit from the resources that I have access to as every other, right? And so we know it's true, and some of the trainings, especially that Katie was talking about around implicit bias and other things, are so essential for all mentors to be aware of and to focus on, and to make sure that we practice those things in all the ways that we engage with mentees. And then the last thing relates to some of this idea around communication management. And so I try to lay out very clearly what my expectations are for trainees. I try to set those things out and also lay out ahead of time things that I have seen have been challenges for other trainees. So for example, I have a very heavy red pen. If I'm going to read your work, I'm going to write all over it. And so I used to just do that and tell people, you know, have a thick skin, this is good. And now I'm much more clear. And I say, like, the red pen is my love for you. If I'm writing all over it, it shows that I'm committed to your work and committed to the improvement of your work. But if that feels bad to you, like this might not be the right relationship for you. You might need a different kind of a mentoring relationship from someone who isn't going to have that kind of focus and directiveness in the work that you're doing. And then sort of related to that, when I'm talking about the benefits of working with me, but also the risks of working with me, the other thing that I try to lay out for people is that I work in some topics that can be sensitive, that are socially stigmatized, and that are challenging. And depending on where people are coming from, that might not be the right space for them. They might want to come to work to do their work and to not have to worry about larger kind of political issues or potentially fraught topics in their academic space. And I respect that, but if they're going to work on the work that I do, that's kind of part of the deal. And so we can part at that position in the relationship with no hard feelings, and they may be better placed with another person. And so to just really maximize the chance of a successful relationship with that transparency at the beginning of the conversation. So I'll stop there to leave time for questions.
So I'm going to start with a question. It's the last question on the ones I shared with the three of you, but it strikes me all of the benefits and the resources that all three of you have talked about, and how lovely it would be that every student would have such a robust mentor relationship. That doesn't happen. I want to try to think a little systematically or at the systems level. So I think we can think of good mentoring as really as a scarce resource. It doesn't happen a lot, I have to say, in my experience over 30 years in the academy. When it does, it's a beautiful thing, but that there are relationships that that don't go well, but a mentor may not call them out, or the mentee feels as though they don't have a power to remove themselves out of that situation. So because we know, and I think it's even more important now than at any time, that these mentoring relationships occur. And we haven't really spoken much to this, important for individuals who are new to the academy, that is, haven't had a long history of experience with perhaps family members who have been academy members. This may be, marginalized or disadvantaged communities. So how are we in this group here are pretty senior. How is it that we set up an institution in which we can assure equitable access to good mentoring? And I will actually let any one of the three of you start on that.
So I'll just jump in with something quick and an idea, which is to say, I agree with you that not everybody is a good mentor. And I wish that we would, in the academy, be a bit more explicit about that you can't train somebody into being an ideal mentor. You can take someone who wants to be a good mentor and give them training to develop skills they want to have. You can't take someone who's reluctant to do this work and make them a good mentor. My own perspective on that. And so our promotion and tenure materials need to reflect that this is important work that benefits the academy. It needs to count as much as other things that we value, instead of it falling to the people who are good at it or care a lot about it, or have personally see a space where they can make a difference, but are doing it over and above the things that they're already being asked to do as academicians. And so, I just think it requires restructuring the way that our rewards work in the academy to honor what this job is.
I would like to build on that and say that in addition to that, we need funders of research to also value mentorship and to factor that in, not only for training grants, but all grants. Because a lot of times, people who get a lot of grant money aren't necessarily great mentors. And so I think that one of the things that I know some of the people at NRMN and at SIMR are trying to do is come up with a good system to measure mentoring, so that we could have a way to actually, for example, when you submit grants and you have two grants that are really good, it's a tie. The tiebreaker should be the mentoring. who of these two scientists has a better mentoring record? And that should be the tiebreaker, because I feel like NIH, NSF, and many other funders are pouring all this money into, for example, diversity initiatives, but at the same time are funding the people that turn those trainees away from research. So that's why we haven't really seen a great increase in diversity in the biomedical workforce, for example, as we should have. So I think that we need not just institutions like Ohio State to value this and put it, make it part of promotion and tenure, but I also think it is really important that the funders come on board as well, because usually that's what makes institutions comply with a lot of things. And one other thing I would add is we also should always encourage trainees to have more than one mentor. We always tell postdocs at orientation that they need to build a mentoring network, because one person, it's not fair to ask one person for all the mentoring that you need.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I was going to add,
Katie.
I completely agree with both of you. Well, yeah, I mean, something we've noticed within NRMN is that when we have departments come in and they're wanting to kick off mentoring for their department because they see it as a value, it's really hard to get the buy-in from individuals in that department whenever there's not top-down buy-in encouraging this and really promoting this and saying that this is something that is worth your time and is worth your promotions. Right now, as Dr. Norris Turner was saying, that, you know, right now good mentoring is falling on a small minority of people instead of it actually being the responsibility of everybody. And in so many cases, you know, there will be mentoring components on research grants, but there's no quantifying or qualifying this mentoring. It's just, yeah, you're the mentor for the people that you bring into this lab, and that's it. That's the extent of it. So the work that Dr. Christine Fund, as well as Dr. Angela Byers-Woodston, and I think Dr. Christine Sorkness, they are all working to develop these qualifying measures for good mentorship and actually how to measure that. And that is going to be something that's so integral whenever it comes to actually developing these mentoring relationships and developing good mentors. But something, just as Marcela was saying, is the network of mentors, because a lot of times whenever you're in these research grants, whenever you're in these labs, you are assigned your mentor, and that's usually the PI on the grant. But if that's not a good mentor for you, if that's not a good fit, you need an outside source able to be able to learn how to work with this person. And it also is really almost a conflict of interest. I mean, it really is a conflict of interest whenever the person who is in charge of your salary and in charge of your promotions is also your mentor. Because what do you do whenever you have any issues with that person, or whenever you're just not communicating or connecting with this person properly? So it really is vital to have outside mentors and outside perspectives from your immediate situation to be able to come in and just provide that guidance that, you know, you're not going to be able to get from being inside the situation. So yeah, I just wanted to reciprocate everything that you both said. I thought it was brilliant.
So I'm going to add a question on that. I did sort of ask, but it's a little different. And this is particularly addressed to Katie with the virtual mentoring. Can you just speak to, you spoke a little bit to this, but both to the advantages and disadvantages of the sort of setup that NRMN has for a mentee. So I assume that there are things both ways. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, some of the biggest advantages are for people that are in mentor deserts, as I like to refer to it, where they're maybe in a rural area, or there's just not that many people in that area that study their specific topic, or that are in that realm, or people that they can connect to, whether it's because of their research, because of their culture, because of whatever identifying factors they have. And you want to be able to reach out and actually communicate and have people to talk to, but maybe they're just not in proximity to you. NRMN is great for that because it's able to connect people all across the country and in some cases across the world. But where it can be difficult, I think, as we've all experienced over the past year, it is really difficult to develop and build that relationship over a Zoom platform. There is something about just being across the table from somebody that just drives that bigger connection than you can do over the internet, over a Zoom meeting. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, but also come in and set up and say, okay, here's what we're going to do to overcome that. We're going to go through and talk about these tough topics. We're going to do these vast introductions to ourselves. We're going to play our own icebreakers with one another in order to really conquer that divide and really get to know each other in this space. So I think that is something that is rather difficult to really open up and feel like you're comfortable with somebody when you're not actually in proximity to. But it also is gaining you access to people that you're not in proximity to. So I think it's that double-edged sword.
Yeah. Any other comments about that question? Okay. I'm just looking at my other questions. Dana, do you have any questions, or are there any questions in the chat we want, or in the Q&A? I don't see any on my end. We can continue with.
I guess I do have a question related to the sort of reciprocal of the question about sort of ensuring inclusivity when it comes to mentoring. So, I mean, we could think that one of the most important components of mentoring is having people who share backgrounds, share certain experiences that really make academic research feel like a home that people from marginalized communities or less represented communities can actually see themselves, see a career, right? And given the ways in which the academy right now is not diverse, this does put a lot of pressure on especially young academics who are struggling with their own advancement and the sort of sustainability of their career. And so I wonder if anyone has any suggestions about how to navigate that, how to think about systems that the university can use to support that, to ensure that, certain people, especially Black researchers or researchers from Indigenous populations, like, they're not the ones that are like bearing the sort of the weight of these responsibilities when they're also trying to build their own career and research agenda.
So yeah, that's really diving into the minority tax that a lot of people that are these really great mentors end up having to pay, essentially, and just really having to take on all these extra responsibilities because they are the Black researcher within their department, because they are the woman, because they are the Hispanic woman, because they are, whatever they are the individual and the only one in that department. And so everybody that feels like they can connect with them at that level is asking them for mentoring, but then they're also being asked to, be almost the poster child for that particular group to show that there is diversity in that department. So that is something that is difficult. And there are grants that are coming up that are working on tackling that, but they are not as widespread as they should be at this point. I don't have a direct answer of how to solve that because that is a huge systemic issue, but I do know that mentoring doesn't ever stop. Just because you get to a level in your career doesn't mean that you are now all of a sudden only a mentor to others and that you don't need mentoring on your own. So that's something that, I definitely recommend keeping that network of mentoring that we've opened up and discussed previously and really continue developing those mentoring relationships. And then I know it's expensive, so hopefully, you know, and especially if a university doesn't cover it, but something that really helps getting outside of that university and getting with those organizations such as SACNAS, such as ABRACAMS, because it's helping to bridge those, you know, connections and bridge that network beyond your own feeling of isolation within your department. So it's really helping you reach out and expand to others that are also going through the same thing that you are. But yeah, unfortunately, that everything you've addressed is a big systemic issue that's occurring right now and has been for a long time.
So quick question to the two of you that run training programs for mentors. Within those training programs, are there ways to help? You know, you've got your bias training, ways in which you can have a mentor who doesn't sort of match, so to speak, but that has been sensitized or culturally respectful and can appreciate the challenge in a department that you just described, Katie, especially senior folks who then can at least assist. There are certain things, certain experiences people have that I've not had that I clearly couldn't mentor or share that. But there seems to be ways in which in some training, I might be able to help carry some of the burden that we've talked about that falls on junior faculty. So do either of your programs speak to that in your training programs?
Well, I'll say that in the SIMMER curriculum, there is a whole unit on addressing equity and inclusion. And we actually separated that and we do a 2.5 hour just of that. And we do talk about that because yes, you cannot expect like only Latino faculty mentor Latino students and white faculty mentor white faculty. That's not feasible, and that's not what we should be aiming for. So we do talk about what are the conversations that we need to have and how to approach mentoring across differences. One thing I will say that is really important for faculty is to also be very self-aware. Where do they culturally come from? You know, what type of privileges did they have access to that they may assume that their trainees also have, which is not the case. I think that that is some of the exercises that we do in our workshops are exactly about that, about realizing, you know, how a lot of times, and I think recently there was a study that came out that showed that the majority of faculty in the United States are from high socioeconomic backgrounds, oftentimes with parents that also have PhDs, for example. And so when we're talking about first generation students that reach the graduate level and beyond, many times they are operating in a system that is has all these assumptions that are not true for them. So one of the things that I think is critical, and I think we've been talking a lot about this in my office and at the university, is to really question the problem, the systemic issues that we have, the assumptions that we're making, the processes that we have to evaluate people and to admit people into programs, hire people into positions. We really need to question how we're doing that, what are we valuing, and what are the things that how can we be more equitable? Because I think we make a lot of assumptions, especially the big assumption that the academy is a meritocracy. And I think it is not, and we all know that it's not, but we don't tell the students this. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that and to look for ways in which we can dismantle the racism, the sexism, the homophobia that's already embedded in our systems.
So at least there's some bridging there. So go ahead, Abby.
Well, I was just gonna pull on something that connects both to what you raised, Pam, but also Anna's original question around especially junior faculty who are carrying this from underrepresented backgrounds, who are carrying this huge mentoring burden of students in the same, coming from the same background. And this is really a job, in my opinion, of senior faculty, not just to mentor graduate students, but to mentor junior faculty who are themselves at real risk of burnout or lack of support for their own academic careers. They get bogged down in this mentoring that they care a lot about and want to do well because they recognize these problems they maybe encountered as students and now they see as faculty. And it is our job as senior faculty to snowplow a lot of the other work out of their way, so that if we believe that this work of mentoring is so important, that we make space that work of theirs is respected, is valued in their, back to their promotion space, but also we take away some of the other academic nickel and diming that happens to people with service and teaching. And we say, like, no, a huge value that you bring to our department is this amazing work that you do with grad students. So we will remove the burdens that you have in other spaces that can be done by other people that don't have the background that you have that can really support these students. And then what we do is more of the mentoring for those students around things like, what courses maybe they need to take, or they're responding to a revise and resubmit, which is related much more to their academic products and less about their academic path, for which they maybe need a mentor who's a better fit, a better cultural fit for a certain period of time. So it requires a lot of humility for senior faculty to recognize that their role in this space is going to be secondary, and that they owe it to their own junior colleagues and to the academics coming behind them to create space for this, where this work can happen.
Excellently said, Abby. I couldn't agree more. So we're getting close to out of town. I haven't seen a question posted, Dana. If I haven't missed anything, have I? Okay. I had one other question. Oh, I thought it was an interesting point, Katie. I think it was you that made, maybe it was Marcela, this conflict of interest question. And that is this idea that if your sort of financial boss, that is the PI on the grant, is also your mentor, there's this inherent problem of a conflict of interest. I would like maybe to hear Abby and Marcela respond to that, because I'm thinking of my own world in which I had graduate students on grants and considered myself a mentor and never really thought about it as a conflict of interest for them. But, I was probably had a blind spot.
I'll just share that I've had the same realization, because in my role as a training core director, I'm a supervisor. I'm kind of in a separate role from them, and I hear about a lot of things that I never heard about when I was both the boss and the mentor. So it's actually been, and I think of myself as a person who has pretty open relationships with my mentees, but I've learned a lot about some things that maybe don't go as well sometimes as I perceive them to go, with that removed. So I think it's a really important conflict to recognize, and now goes into my discussion that I have in a new mentoring relationship to recognize it as something that I try to be explicit about and ask for feedback in that space, and make the person feel secure that, being critical of a certain way that something's going doesn't jeopardize their GRA position or something. Things I never said before because I thought that it was self-evident, and now I say it.
Yeah. So I think we're about out of time. I'm going to give an opportunity if anybody wants to have the last comment. I want to really thank the three of you for coming on and having this discussion. Last comments?
Well, I just want to say that this is why the mentoring network is so important, the conflict of interest, because you really need to have different voices advising you on different things. Because yes, I think that there are pressures that your main mentor has because of the grants that they have to their name, and the obligations that those bring, and they're going to be looking at things through a different lens than somebody who doesn't have that as a main worry, let's say. I think it's important to have both, and I think that that doesn't mean that the main advisors off the hook mentoring because of the conflict of interest. I think, but it's really important. I think one question I would pose is, as an institution, universities really need to ask themselves, what is it that they value in faculty? Good teachers and mentors, or super grant writers, or what is it? because I think that sometimes we're pulling faculty in so many directions. And sometimes it's not clear that being a good mentor is valued.
I think we're going to have to end on that note. But I want to thank our panelists for taking your time to come on today. And we will see you again. I think on the next panel is the 18th, isn't it, Dana? Or is it November? Well, you'll see a flyer. So take care. Thank you.